I think something strange got into my house. What's going on? It's Jason Heath, and people ask me all the time, what's the difference between a German bow and a French bow anyway? I mean, is one better at some things than the other? Which one should I play? That's what we're diving into in this video, plus
a deeper lesson
that'll change the way you think about either bow. Okay, first of all, what are the differences between German bow and French bow? And some of them are pretty obvious. I think the frog is one. You can see the French bow has this sort of French style, I guess, looks like violin, viola, cello, and then German bow has this wider frog right here. It's got this pointier, I wish I had better words for this, screw, and it's also just a little bit different in shape overall. By the way, this is my Baron Doling bow that you've seen in many, many videos. This is from the company I work for, Eastman Music Company, nice Pernambuco bow, not as high quality as my Baron Doling, but decent kind of starter wood bow. And one of the biggest differences is how they are held. The French bow is held what we call overhand, and the German bow is held in the way that we call underhand. And I actually find that the German bow is a bit easier to teach the bow hold for. There's a wonderful orchestra teacher and bassist in the Seattle area named Joe Divig, who shared some great slides with me. I use them at conferences, and he has this great zombie method, I call it. So he has you take your arm, hold it up like a zombie movie, then just take the bow, put the bow in right there, and basically where the fingers land is about where you want to be for the German bow. You have the first finger generally on the octagonal side, kind of on this side a little bit. You have the second finger right in here, right by where the frog and the wood meet. The third finger is kind of chilling out here, but I usually tell people, and I'm kind of like an amateur German bow player, or I am an amateur German bow player, but you generally want to have the third finger kind of fill the gap, maybe touch the ferrule slightly, and then the pinky is on the ferrule right here, this metal part, and so that's your German bow hold. And I like to use the word hold, not grip, because we don't want to grip things. If it slips out, that's my old school training, but sorry if it does. French bow is a little more comfortable a lot of the time to music teachers who teach violin, viola, cello, because it's essentially the same thing. You put the hand here, and then the thumb goes either here on the metal ferrule or on the side of the frog. And I have other videos getting into more detail in terms of the French bow, and I'll link up to those. For either French or German bow, it really doesn't help that much to practice this in the air, and I definitely don't recommend doing this and then letting go of the bow, as I just did that, because we really never play with the bow like that. We always have the bow on the string or headed toward the string. So really you have to think about how the fingers and the thumb and everything react when they're on the string. German bow is the same concept. You just think about how this reacts when it's actually sitting on the string. If you're finding value in this video so far, consider hitting that like button, even subscribing, and be sure to stick around to the end of the video for that deeper lesson. People often ask, is the French bow better at certain things? Is the German bow better at certain things? Well, in very subtle, or somewhat subtle at least, ways, yeah, the French bow tends to be a bit easier in terms of crossing strings. And that just has to do with the way that your wrist is oriented on the bow. People find that going between strings like that just tends to be a little bit easier on the French bow. I find, however, that people tend to have a bit more of a problem with getting this comfortable at first. And if people are coming from like violin or cello, but especially violin, I find that the violin bow hold is just different enough with the pinky on top, the orientation of the bow, the fact that it's going this way instead of landing down on the string like that. Sometimes it can be like a total disaster, and the German bow can be kind of a nice reset. The German bow tends to bounce incredibly well almost too well in some ways, but I find that teaching spiccato and strokes like that tends to come a little bit faster for German bow. Also, there's this wonderful full body kind of connection that you have with the string when you're playing German bow. It just tends to lend itself, I find, toward getting the whole back and body engaged. The thing that tends to be a little more challenging on the German bow is string crossing. Of course, it can be done and people are amazing at German bow string crossing, but because of the orientation of the wrist, you don't have that kind of wrist flexibility going for you that you do with the French bow. Another kind of subtle but important difference is because you're holding the French bow like this and you're holding the German bow like this, you tend to use a little more arm in the German bow, especially on the G string side when you're reaching over. So for French bow, that can be pretty comfortable. For German bow, that can be a little bit of a stretch for some people. And so what you'll see, even with some professional players, is a tendency for German bow players to kind of let their bow go crooked on the G-string side. I mean, there are some fantastic bass players playing German bow that let their bow go crooked a little bit. In general, you want to play with a straight bow or as straight a bow as you can, so just watch out for that if you're starting out with the German bow, especially on the G-string side of things. Here's a quick demo, simple thing, just a 1-octave C major scale so you can see how the mechanics are similar and different between French and German bow. So which one should you play? Either, really. Do what your teacher suggests, do what seems to work best for you. Both are about equally popular worldwide. Yes, the French bow is used in France predominantly, and yes, the German bow is used in Germany predominantly, although there are exceptions to the rule. Here in the United States, it's about 50-50, and in most other countries of the world. You'll see a couple regional tendencies, but they're both incredibly common. And that leads me to that deeper topic I said we'd get into. And that's really both bows function identically above here. I mean, this is a little bit different than this. But once you get into the forearm and above, the mechanics are basically identical. Just those string crossing differences and the wingspan of the G string and just those subtle differences, you know, that's really about it. And I have found that practicing the German bow really helps my French bow playing. If I'm struggling with some bow stroke, going over to the other bow can unlock some doors. Think of it like cross-training on the bass. I'd like to thank today's sponsor, the Wabass Institute of the Honeywell Arts Academy. They're accepting applications for their 2022 summer program. The deadline is February 15th. I think this program is so cool. I was there in 2021 and got to experience it in person, and it's such a unique program. It is a full scholarship performance institute. It fosters an inclusive, supportive environment where ideas are freely shared from teacher to student and vice versa. All programs at the Honeywell Arts Academy focus on fostering the human spirit by performing within the community to use music as a means to connect and heal. Eric Larson, Hal Robinson, Renan Meyer, congratulations on this long-running program. Folks, get your application in by February 15th, and I hope to see you there. There's a lot to learn with the bow, and these two videos are a great next step. Check them out, and we'll see you in the next one.